time starting shortly. All right, so CV writing, that's the subject for today. And I believe we all know that there is a difference between academic CVs and professional CVs. Of course, both of them are CVs. The other one is a CV, the second is also a CV, but there is a level of difference between the two. And depending, of course, on what you are applying for, you may be writing an academic CV instead of a professional CV. So, academic CV will be the kind of CV you write when you are applying for, say, a graduate assistantship position, when you are applying for a scholarship, when you are applying for a job as, say, a lecturer in a particular institution, or when you're applying for most of the jobs that you will find within the academia. You're applying for a research position, you're applying for a postdoctorate position, you're applying for a lecturing job. All of these, you will be needing specifically a CV that's tailored for the academia. Right. But if, for instance, you are interested in writing a CV because you want to apply for a job in a company, then you will be writing a more professional, or what's called a professional CV, or you'll be writing more or less a resume, depending on what the name is called. But today, what we want to do is to look at all the mistakes that people make when they write CVs. We want to look at what the best practices are and should be, what you should be doing in order to move from, just submitting applications for all jobs and not getting interviewed to submitting applications that actually bring you to the door of the interview. Stay with me as we start diving into this whole thing. This is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions, and today we are going to dissect CV writing from top to bottom. Everything you need to know. Now, the first part, let's talk about general mistakes that people make. Or before we start talking about the mistakes that people make, let me just take some time to describe certain things for you. There is a concept that's called ATAS. It's called ATAS. That's ATS rather, applicant tracking systems, right? Applicant tracking system. What an applicant tracking system is more like an automated system that says that, okay, this applicant, based on our initial judgment, is qualified for this job, or this applicant, based on our initial judgment, is not qualified for this job, right? And once you fall into that category that is considered as not qualified for the job, then your application will be thrown out. But there are certain things that these kind of systems would want to see in an applicant's in someone's application in order to progress that application from just the point of entry into the application to actually passing on to the next stage of an application process. And so today, what we want to do is show you everything that you really need to know in this whole web of applications of writing CVs, so that you are able to beat the ATS systems. If, for instance, you're applying for a job that is ATS, tracked, or if you're applying for any other kind of job, the right things to say on your CV in order to make progress on the application. So please go ahead, continue to tag your friends, because this is something most people need, and most people do not even realize that they actually do not know how to write CVs. So if you've got a friend who is looking for a scholarship, looking for a job, please tag them in the comment section. Now, let's get started. Ideally, I would like to do something like this over Zoom so that I can share screens, use real life examples, and try to educate. But because we are doing this on Facebook Live, what you will help me do is to keep track of the conversation and drop your questions in the comment section. At the end of the event, I'll come back to the comment section, read through the questions, and then try to answer as many of the questions as possible. Getting started right now. So, mistake number one that people make when they try to write CVs is the fact that most people just want to use one CV and apply for every job. They want to use one CV, apply for job A, job B, job C, job E, job D, everything. But you find that when in doing something of that kind, you are going to be combining a whole lot of things, and then confusing a whole lot of things. The reason is that every job has got a specific description, and every job has got specific set of skills that the employer is looking for in the applicant. Every job has got like a specific set of qualifications that is looking for. Now, if you are one of those, if you're in that category of people who just carry one CV and then keep dumping it over all the other places, like keep replicating that CV in every application you do, then this is something you need to start avoiding from today, right? Now, number two, the other mistake that people make in writing CVs, again, let's also bear in mind that there is no golden template for writing CVs, right? So the other mistake people make is having like a copy and paste kind of templates that they use for writing their CVs all the time, right? And the reason I consider it a mistake, of course, most people wouldn't talk about this because many people have got their CV templates that sometimes are sold. They are sometimes, put up there for downloads and all of that. But the idea of talking about this is the reason I consider that a mistake is because if I'm to write a CV, for instance, and give it to you as a template, my CV cannot tell your story, right? The template of a CV that tells my story perfectly does not tell your own story perfectly. So if, for instance, and then again, the template for a CV that tells the story of someone who is applying, of my own story when I apply for engineering jobs, is different from the template that tells my story when I am applying for an academic job. So if I make the mistake of carrying over my engineering CV template into my academic applications, into my scholarship applications, my postdoctorate applications, my grant applications, and all of that, I will be making a very terrible mistake that underrepresents my suitability to that particular position. And what I want to do is that, to ensure that every CV I write is addressed to the particular position, to the particular job, given the best aspects of myself, the best aspects of my career growth that, relates to that particular job function. Right. So that's a mistake. And of course, I get the questions very often of, can you send me a CV template? I generally do not. And even when it comes to SOPs, I generally do not send people templates because once somebody has a template, you're more like the mind becomes a bit of narrowed. But the idea is you need to just have an understanding of what should go into your CV, what should be in the CV, and then you think of the job yourself and then, try to supply relevant information that fills up that kind of space. There are people who have, advanced to a point where you give them a template and they're able to make good use of the template. But in general, most people actually don't make perfect use of templates. It becomes like a copy and paste kind of thing for them. And in the end, they end up trying to tell another person's story and eventually underrepresenting themselves. Right. So the other one, mistake number three, that you need to actually avoid and you need to pay good attention to when you are doing your CV is, spelling and grammar mistakes. You find a lot of CVs where somebody has written something like, you find spelling errors, you find grammatical errors on CVs, and it's a very big red flag to anybody who is reading your CV because your CV is something that you are submitting for a job. And then the question becomes if you are making grammatical mistakes on your CV, making spelling mistakes, actually very basic spelling mistakes on your CV, then what's the chance that when you get to that job, you will be able to pay attention to details? Is a direct, suggestion that this person does not pay attention to details. And I don't know, practically every job you want to apply for will require someone who is able to pay attention to details. So if you have got a CV and you have completed the writing of the CV, take out some time, go through that CV once again. If possible, share it with a friend who will, look through it to ensure that all your grammars are on, all your grammar is on point, right? Your spellings are on point, and then before you start sending out those CVs. Right. Now, the other mistake people also make in CV writing is, and this is very common in, I don't know how common it is across the world, but I've seen a number of CVs that carry this same mistake. Somebody wants to talk about apply for a job, and then you go into your CV and you want to write, say for instance, your gender, say for instance your age, say for instance your town, your village, your local government, your all of those kind of details. These are things that there are instances where these things are normal, but in most general job applications, and especially if you're applying for an international opportunity, you actually do not need all of those kind of details. Now, there are exceptions, don't get me wrong. There are exceptions where, for instance, you need to put your age. Generally, people condemn having your age on your CV, but there are exceptions where, for instance, you have to put your age on your CV. And I give you a typical example. So a job has said that they are looking for somebody who is, but there are hardly jobs that come in that pattern. What I'm trying to point out here is that there are jobs where you may be required to have your local government on your CV. There are jobs where you may be required to have your state of origin or the region of the world you're coming from on your CV. For instance, a job says maybe the United Nations is looking for a young female who is going to, maybe like a young female coming from sub-Saharan Africa or from Beijing or from Bangladesh that will take up a job in so and so kind of place. Now, in that kind of, within that scope of that job description, it's actually necessary that you indicate your gender, because a first criteria, if they are going to use, say for instance, an applicant tracking system, the system will most likely be set up to disqualify anybody who is male, right? But those kind of jobs are hard to come by, where there is that statement of you must be a female, you must be a male, for instance. But if the job says that yes, this person who fills up this position has to be female or has to be male, then in that circumstance only do you have to put your gender on your CV. Otherwise, you really do not have any business including your gender on your CV. Avoid it. Now, the other part is there are people who want to talk about their marital status on their CVs. Again, this is something you actually should avoid, because, and I'll give you a typical example, because most times when you go ahead to tell your employer that you are a married person, or you have got 5 kids, or you've got 3 kids, the question begins to ring on the mind of the person, like, how well will this person be able to balance family life and work life, right? If the person has got to know that you just had a child, you have a young baby, for instance, the question becomes, or you go to your CV and write something like, I got married in 2016, and then I'm applying for a job in 2017. The question becomes like, probably between 2016 and 2017, you most likely have a kid, or maybe in 2018 you have a kid, and then the question becomes, what will be your ability to manage having that kid and then having your job, working on that job full time? So you want to avoid anything that goes the line of you are married, the line of you have kids, the line of this is your gender, the line of this is your local government, or this is like your town or your village or any of those kind of stuff. You want to stay away completely from those kind of discussions on your CV. Right. Now, what are the things you actually need on your CV? Because we are talking about the things you don't need. We have discussed some of the things that shouldn't actually come close to your CV. And then we've discussed some other things that, are case specific. But what are the good practices? What are the things that you need to do in order to get a reasonable CV that people will be able to read, and then people will be able to say, okay, yes, let's give this person a chance. Let's have this person come to the door and have a conversation with us. Right now, the first aspect of it is, for everything you do, whether you're applying for a scholarship or whether you're applying for a job, your starting point is reading the details of the advertisement. So you have a job advertisement that says, okay, we are looking for class X, Y, Z of people, but apart from naming that, okay, we're looking for an engineer, for instance, or we're looking for a teacher, that job advert will go ahead to give you something that's called a job profile. A job profile will give you more details about the qualities they require in the person that will fill the position. It will give you more details about the skills they require in the person that will fill the position. It will give you more details about the job function, right? So when you have all the details about a job's function, when you have all the details about the skills required for a job, the qualifications required for a job, then you now have a perfect picture on the basis of which you start building your CV. Because again, your CV has to be tailored to the job. Your CV has to be tailored to the scholarship, right? Your CV has to be tailored to the application you are making. Of course, we are starting with all the CV writings for, professional jobs and all that, but we'll come specifically to CVs that are for academic purposes, for like academic positions, graduate assistantships, and all that. There's a slight difference between the two, right? So you have that understanding of the job. Now, when you go to your CV, you find, maybe you go to Microsoft Word, you find like different templates of CVs with multiple graphics and multiple designs. Actually, these are things I personally do not have on my CV. And I would generally recommend that you don't need so much of artistry on your CV. You don't need so much of designs. You don't need so much of, effects, color effects, and pictures and all that. Now, the other thing people also do, the mistakes are many, they are numerous, and I'll keep mentioning them in the process. There are people also who go on their CVs and they want to put a full picture of themselves on the CV, or they want to put a passport of themselves on the CV. Some employers would actually find that annoying. Some recruiters really find that annoying, and a CV it should be a basic document in the very sense of it, a basic document that has the best definition, or the best picture of who you are. Picture in terms of your qualities, picture in terms of your skills, picture in terms of your academic qualifications, picture in terms of your job experience. Right, but you people go on occupying the space on the paper with maybe pictures of themselves in the lab, pictures of themselves and with equipment and all that. These are all things that should finally be gone from your CV after this conversation. Right. So now you move on to, you have read through the job profile, you have understood the job profile, you have understood the skills. Now, what do you do to start writing a CV? This is where people start running around and looking for templates, but you actually do not need to pay for any template of a CV. All you need is your Microsoft Word, open it up, and then start with think of it this way. Your CV should be in segments, and each segment should achieve a particular purpose. The first segment should achieve one purpose, the next segment should achieve one purpose, the next segment should achieve one purpose. In the end, all of these segments should add up to meeting the description of the job given in the on the job profile. Now, a job profile necessarily does not have to be named a job profile, but when you read through an advert, you'll be able to get a picture of who the job is looking for, who meets the job, who stands out on that particular job, who is the employer looking for. Right. So once you have that picture, you want to now start tailoring your CV down. Segments. So you don't need to like start writing up tables. You see some CVs and they are written like somebody comes here, he draws a table, goes to Microsoft Word, draws a table, one side maybe a two column kind of table. One side is this one, the other side is the other one. You're writing that. It looks a bit of chaotic when you read a CV in that format, right? And then you find some other persons who go on their CVs and like there are just too many capitalizations of words, too many capitalizations in sentences and all of that. These are things you actually shouldn't do on your CV because it makes it difficult to read. There should be some kind of consistency in both your fonts, the font sizing, and all of that. There should be a level of consistency with highlights in terms of the segments should each segment should stand out, but in terms of the actual experience, in terms of the actual job done, you don't need to go there and fill up everything in capital letters. It becomes annoying to read if you write in that particular format. So in the segments, now let's look at the first segment of your CV. Now again, I think everybody who talks about CV writing agrees that the first segment of your CV should be about yourself, like your contact details, your name, your phone number, your email address. Sometimes, depending on some additional situations, you may want to include your physical address, right? And I give you an example of where that becomes necessary. If I'm applying for a job in Aberdeen, for instance, and I live in Aberdeen, I know that that job is maybe the job has mentioned that, well, they are looking for locals, they are looking for people within the environment to do the job. Then it becomes very necessary that I highlight my physical presence in Aberdeen and my physical address within the city where that job is to be offered, right? But dependent. Some people argue that you shouldn't have your exact physical address on your job CVs, but well, again, very often I tend to have my physical address on my CV depending on the description of the job. And that's why I lay emphasis on understanding the description of the job before you start. The second segment of this conversation is going to be focused on academic CVs. And by the time we are done with professional CVs and talk about academic CVs, you will see the difference that exists between the two of them. And then you'll be able to like tailor your CV depending on what you are looking for, and then have that focus and get a high quality CV out to your job application. So the first segment, everybody will agree that you have to put your contact details on your CV. Now imagine that you're an employer and then you've got a CV or you've got 10 CVs from 10 applicants. Very often you have way more than that for every job you put out there, except like very highly technical jobs and highly experienced kind of jobs. But at an entry level, for every job you put out, you will have, in most cases, way more than 10 CVs coming into your inbox. Now, the guy goes through all of these applications and then he finds your document very interesting, but he wants to reach out to you. And this is something that has happened. I was in Nigeria recently, and somebody was telling me a story of how she had she was needed for a job, and I think her details were not there, her phone number was not there, and then it had to be like it was a bit of a challenging situation. But you want to avoid getting yourself into that kind of situation where your CV does not have your contact details, because again, the idea is somebody should be able to pick up the phone and get in touch with you directly from the hiring team to say, okay, yes, we want you here on so and so day. Can you show up for an interview? Can you show up to start up the job? Can you show up to like define this about your CV? Can you provide us additional details about this component of your CV? So you want to have your name written very first thing on every CV. You want to have your contact phone number following it. You want to have your contact email address for as a minimum on the first segment of your CV. Right. Now, after that segment, it becomes a bit of tricky because some people will argue that, well, after that, you have to write a career summary, which is standard. Some people will call it like a statement of objectives. I prefer to write it as a summary The reason I do it as a professional summary is because it gives me the opportunity to summarize who I am, what I have done, and what I intend to do. Now, if you call it career objectives or if you call it job application objective, you will be narrowed to writing about what you intend to achieve in the future. So if you're writing an academic CV, for instance, or a professional CV, and you go like the second segment, you call it objectives, you will most likely be tempted to just write about the things you want to do, the things you want to do in the future. I call it personal summary, career summary, any of those, but I prefer to write it as a summary because in writing it as a summary, I give the recruiter a one paragraph that contains a summary of what I have been able to do, who I am, and what I intend to do. Generally, I write that paragraph, just one paragraph. It shouldn't be more than that, and the paragraph shouldn't be such a long paragraph because that's not, that's not your main work experience. But you want to give the person an idea of what to expect going down through the CV, right? So I pick it up. I want to write my career summary. How do I think about it? If I'm writing a career summary for a job that requires me to be on the field, again, I'm an engineer by training. I'm not a human resource person. I'm an engineer by training. And so sometimes when I talk, I'm going to draw examples from engineering and from my background. So if I'm writing a CV that is tailored for a job that's going to take me offshore or going to take me to an oil field, for instance, when I write that CV, you will find that my career summary on that CV or my professional summary or personal summary, whatever I choose to call it, on that CV will differ slightly from the career summary of a CV that myself, the same me, will use to apply for an office-based kind of job, for an engineering design kind of role. Right? Because again, I am an engineer. Going to the field requires some maybe level of engineering. Going to the office requires some level of engineering. But there is a difference between what's expected of an office staff and what is expected of a field staff. So when I write my career summary, I want to highlight that part of me that relates directly to the job at hand. And if the job at hand is a field job, I will come to that career summary and modify it. If the job at hand is an office-based job, I'll come to that career summary and modify it. You can choose to call it personal summary. You can choose to call it anything. What I just don't like to do is to call it objectives because very often when people call it an objective, they go to write them in bullet points, which is, it's not like it's a bad practice per se, but I think that most times going the objective route gives you, it takes off that idea, it takes off that aspect of summarizing who you are, which is something I consider very important on every CV. So you consider that second section as an abstract. If you've written a paper before, you've read any academic paper before, consider it like an abstract. If you are from the business side, consider it more like what's called there's a name it's called in business. It's not called abstract. Executive summary. Consider it an executive summary of your CV. Right, now after that section, remember you're writing your CV in segments. Some people will put underlines for each of the segments, maybe something like they write personal details on top and then they underline it and then write their name, their phone number, and all that. Personally, I don't really think it's so necessary to have like say for instance personal details you underline. The underlines will usually also take you some additional space, like when people draw a line, pick a line in Microsoft Word, draw it under the right up, go to the next section, pick it, draw it under it. Again, you are looking at space. You want to manage your space very carefully. You want to optimize your usage of space. And because you want to optimize your usage of space, you don't want to go into all the details of, occupying space unnecessarily with things that really do not matter. So You leave that personal contact you've written, personal details you've written, career summary or professional summary you've written as well. And then at the end of writing all of those, your personal details and your career summaries, the next thing you want to start looking at is, do I go, the next question becomes, do I write my academic experience or my academic background, or do I go for my work experience? Now, various persons will have different opinions at this point, right? Some persons will tell you that immediately after that section, you should go to your job experience. But the question becomes, what if you have not had any job experience at all? Now, some persons will say, okay, you must write your academic background because maybe the job says you need a bachelor's degree and you want to show it immediately that you've got a bachelor's degree. The question becomes, what if you have a bachelor's degree, but you have a whole lot of other experience that matches the job which you want to showcase? So it becomes, again, a question of what do you have at the moment, right? And then what does the job say? So, but as a matter of practice, if we go by general standard, I think you should go by writing your work experience first and then follow that work experience with your academic qualifications, depending if you have got like research experience, teaching experience, and all of that. You want to separate them if you are doing an academic CV. But if you are looking at a professional CV, you talk about your experience before you move down to your academic qualifications, right? Because you want to talk about the work experience, because in that work experience, you are able to relate directly to the job function. You want to prove that, yes, this job says they need somebody to do A, B, and C, and then you have done A, B, or you have done A, B, and C, and then in addition to A, B, and C, you have also done D, right? You want to show all of that kind of thing. So you go to your work experience. Now, various persons or many people go to the work experience section and then they just write the name of the company they've worked for and then they move. Or they write the name of the company they've worked for, they write the title of the job they were doing, and they move. And that's a big mistake you need to avoid. If you are writing a CV, the essence of the CV is not just to see that you have worked somewhere. The essence of the CV is to show that you have actually done something somewhere. You have, to showcase what you actually did while you were working on that job somewhere. So if you go down to the CV and then you write, maybe you worked in, let's say you worked in the national oil company of your country, and then you write, maybe you worked in the national oil company of a country for 2 years, and you jump to the next one, you worked in maybe your national cement manufacturing country for the next 1 year, without any detail, without like saying, okay, this is actually what I did. These were my contributions to the team. These were my contributions to, optimizing processes and making things better, or maybe improving sales or improving the quality of academics, improving the knowledge of the students, improving the learning environment for the students and all of that. If you don't go into all those step-by-step details of what you've done, then you have not written a CV. In the real sense of writing a CV, you have not done a CV, right? So what should you do instead? You come to your work experience and you are writing a list of all the jobs you have done. You write that, say you worked in, let's say, the United Nations. Now you write that country, that company where you worked, or that organization where you worked, and you want to also mention the title of the job you did, right? At the end of mentioning the title of the job you did, you want to mention the period of the time. For how long did you do this job, right? I've had a situation where I wrote a CV, or I was helping someone put a CV together, and the person's job experience is broken. Like it was like in bits. Say, okay, somebody was maybe working as a salesman here. After 2 months, the person moved to another place. After 3 months, he moved to another place. It becomes difficult to write those kind of details in one CV. So sometimes if I am doing something like that, I try to aggregate, like do an aggregation of those kind of things. So I just write that the person was a salesman, right? And then I may not go into all the details of all the list of all the companies that the person has worked for. So I could take the main company where the person worked, and then sometimes maybe this is not a standard practice now. What I'm telling you now is not a standard practice, but in such kind of instances, you may want to avoid the length of time. That's if the job has not said that you must have done a salesman job, for 5 years. So it becomes a kind of selective amnesia for you. You intentionally avoid or intentionally feel like you want to forget about the length of time. But generally, standard practice, you need to have the name of the company where you have worked. You want to have your job title in that particular organization. You want to have the length of time that you worked in that on that role or as someone in that company. Now, after you've done that, it depends on you now. For me, I will write the name of the company. I go to the side of that. I go to the extreme right side of it, and then I put the time frame, maybe like 2020 to 2023 or 25, depending. And then I go under it and I write the title of the job that I did. I put that, usually I'll make one of that bold. Either I'm making the name of the company bold, or I'm making the title of the job I did there, putting it in bold, because I want that to stand out, especially if it is a direct match for the kind of role that I am looking for. So I now go under it in bullet points. You don't need to go too artistic. You don't need to start using like some form of artistic kind of thing there. You just want to use basic bullet points. You want to write your jobs. What did you do in this organization? Number one, maybe let's say when I talk about CVs, I like to use salesmen so much. Maybe because it gives a very good idea of what a CV should be like. Yeah. So let's just work with the salespeople. Let me leave engineering a little bit. Now, before we start getting into how to write each of these CVs, let me just encourage us to like the video, to share the video, to tag friends. And if you have not followed us on YouTube, please, after this event, kindly go back to your YouTube, come back to the pinned comment on this event, and click on that link and you'll find yourself on direct on our YouTube channel. So it's made the job easy for you. You just go through there, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then when we post videos on YouTube, you'll be able to see them as well and draw the best benefits. Actually, the video you see and the link to our YouTube channel is a video I recommend that every follower of this page should watch. And then even people who are not following this page, share it with them, because within this scholarship season, everybody needs to understand how to reach out to professors, how to pursue graduate assistantship positions, whether you're in the arts, you are in the humanities, you are in sciences, anything that you are doing at all. That video will help you connect with professors. It will help you connect with graduate assistantship positions. Actually, many of the scholarships I post on this platform, I get to see them because I apply the same principles that I have taught in that webinar. The webinar is recorded. It was done towards the end of last year, recorded and then uploaded to our YouTube channel. That video is not on our Facebook page, but you will find it right there on YouTube. Please go there, hit the like button, hit the subscription button right there on YouTube, and then we'll be linked up. All right, so let's continue. We are talking about the components of your CV, the section describing the job you did or the jobs that you have done in any of the companies that you worked for. What? Someone is saying he can't hear me. Okay, not him. I am wondering what the situation is, but I know that my voice should be coming out real clear. My microphone is really powerful. It picks voices really very well. Just have a check on your end and see if there is anything that is not so very right there. Now, let's continue. But if more people can't hear me, please indicate in the comment section. And if you can hear me and you are still following, please indicate in the comment section that you can hear me so that I can just continue with the conversation. If you are still online and you can hear me, please just let me know in the comment section that you can hear me, and then let's continue with the conversation. Remember, your questions should go to the comment section, and all of those questions you put right there in the comment section, I'll come back to them very shortly at the end of the event. Okay, thank you very much, Jane. I can see that people can still hear me. So let's continue. So you come to the first bullet points under the job you've done. So you were, let's say, a sales executive for company X, and you have written that you were a sales executive for company X from 2009 to 2025, for instance. Don't stay that long on any job, please, because it doesn't show progress and you need to make progress. But let's say, just for the sake of argument, you've stayed on the job for 2019 to 2009 to 2011. Now you want to go into describing the things you did on that role while working on that in that company. So bullet point number 1. Remember, you are writing this CV to qualify for a particular job that has been advertised. So you may have had, like, say, 500 things you did on that job. But the 500 things you did on the job, let's say 20 are relevant to the current position you want to apply for, and then 10 or 2 are the most relevant to the job you want to apply for. Right? By your judgment, maybe your biggest contribution to your company is that you increased you helped the company establish maybe like a new branch somewhere. Or your biggest contribution to the company was that on a particular day there was a fire incident, and then the HSE officer was not around, and then you are the next trained HSE staff, and then you had to like extinguish the fire. You saved the company's building, you saved the company maybe like damages that would have been worth, say, $2 billion or $2 million and all that in terms of the company's assets. But again, you are applying for a job in this case that does not require your HSE skills. Now, it does not require your fire extinguishing skill, right? The fact that you helped company X extinguish a fire that would have consumed the entire company and brought the company's assets to zero does not necessarily, and then of course the company X would have rewarded you for that. They would have recognized you, paid you well, maybe like promoted you, giving you some kind of bonus and all that. But that function could be your biggest achievement in the company, actually maybe above the sales job you were doing, above the number of sales you did, above the revenue you generated for the company. The company might recognize that as your biggest contribution to the company. But the next company you are going to is not asking you to become a fire extinguishing man. They are not asking you to come become a HSE staff. You are applying for a sales job. You are applying for, say, a sales manager position. So you want to now downgrade that savings or that HSE related incident. You want to put it down on the rank of others in your activities, in the list of the things you've done in the company, in the list of your achievements, in the list of the work you did, right? The reason you are doing that is because you still need to add it, because that's something recognizable. It's something great. Everybody would want to read it, but that's not the core of the job you're applying for. So you want to talk about the things that you've done that are directly related to the job you're applying for right now. And then after that, you can begin to add all the other flesh that may make your application robust, that may make your application stand out above someone else's application. right? But you don't want to go like, oh, I extinguished fire, I saved the company money, I maybe describing how you took the the fire extinguishing equipment, how you sent everybody out, how you took attendance after that at the muster point and all that and all that. These are good, right? But you want to downgrade them in the ranking of what comes first in your bullet point. So the point I'm making is, when you write the job you have done, remember, this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. I take time to teach. Actually, I take time to explain things like to the details that anybody can understand, because it's an academy, and then we teach in an academy, right? So you want to go by this job I am applying for. Says that I want to become a sales manager. And then becoming a sales manager, what do? I want to showcase the aspects of me that has managed sales. I want to showcase the aspects of me that has brought revenue into the company that I was working for. So you write about those ones step by step. Now, the other mistake people make, and which you shouldn't make after this day, is to write your achievements as responsibilities. So there's a difference between your job responsibility and your achievements on the job, right? So when I want to write a CV, I prefer to talk more about my accomplishments, and everybody wants to see it. Everybody is more interested in looking at your accomplishments above your job function. Because again, you could be employed into a company as a salesman. You go into that company, you have all the job functions of a salesman defined for you, but somewhere along the line, you are actually not making sales, right? You are not generating revenue for the company. You are not doing anything for the company in terms of actual sales job, right? But your next employer wants to see what were your accomplishments, what were the things you did. Not just that, oh, the job functions of a salesman, you go to the internet, you copy it, and then you paste it into your CV. It doesn't work, right? It basically doesn't work, because what that does is you are basically going to be explaining the job functions of, you are just relisting the job function that every other person will have. So if 20 persons were to write a CV in that format, and they've been to different companies as salesmen, you will find that the content will just be exactly the same. Right. But you want your own CV to stand out. You want your own CV to be different from the CV of every other person. So you approach CV writing from the position of writing about your achievements instead of your job functions. Of course, you could still add your job functions, but that should come after you've written your accomplishments on a job. And how do you write accomplishments? How do you write your achievements? How do you present your achievements if somebody was to call you to make a presentation? Let's imagine what politicians do. For instance, a politician comes, and one politician says, when I was let's say, the president of country XYZ, I built roads, right? Another politician comes and he says, when I was the president of country A, I built 20 kilometers of road costing 300, or maybe initially estimated to cost 5 billion maybe pounds, but we were able to optimize and brought down the price of building that road to 2 billion pounds. Right? I don't know if we are seeing the differences in what I'm saying. So one person is talking about something that is very vague, something that is very general, something that should ideally be his responsibility. He comes to say, oh, I was president, I built infrastructure, but basically every president should build infrastructure, right? It's like common knowledge. Everybody knows that. And then he says, oh, I built infrastructure in my country. The other person comes to give you the details of what he did in terms of the numbers, to say that, okay, I built 20 kilometers of road, or I built 300 kilometers of road. The initial estimate was maybe like, or maybe the initial estimate by the past government was 20 billion. But I came, I did this, I did that, I brought down the price of building that road to 5 billion. I saved the country 15 billion. right? If you write your CVs, you want to think in that direction. You want to bear that in mind, that the person who is employing you wants to see numbers. The person who is employing you wants to see numbers. He wants to see achievements. He wants to see the things you have done, and in quantifiable terms, not in the very vague and very basic form of it, right? So you want to go into all those bullet points, and each of the things you write, of course there are certain things you can't quantify in terms of actual numbers, but as much as possible try to quantify the things you have done. Try to quantify the achievements you've made. Try to quantify how much of efficiency you've brought into a system, how much of improvement you've brought into a system. Sometimes it may not be actual numbers, but even if you write something like about 20% or over 20% or over 30% of something, nearly 15% of savings, that's a good picture of what somebody can see and be able to make judgments and be able to classify your performance into a box of, say, this guy is a high performing person, the other person is a low performance person. And that's the way you should write your job function. So don't go write a CV and just mention the name of the company you worked and go away. Mention the name of the company you worked for. Mention the job title you had in the company. Mention the time frame within which you worked in that company. At the end of that, go down and begin to write all the main achievements you had while working in that company, working in that organization, or doing that particular job. It could be your personal business, but even if you are running your business, there should be numbers to the things you've done. There should be, these things should be quantifiable. Now, after the quantification of all of these, people talk about it generally in terms of use active voice, right? In the active, like use strong verbs to portray the things you've done. Like, but you also don't need to go tell a lie. If your role in something was a support person in a particular role, put it as a support person. But let your contribution stand out. So if you were in a team or in a committee, you may not be the leader of that committee, and you don't need to claim being the leader of a committee that you didn't lead. But in every committee you get into, there has to be a specific thing that you did to contribute to that committee. I used to be member of a committee that was trying to look at what business would look like, or what the business atmosphere for my company was going to look like in, say, maybe in the next 10 years, right? But if I just write, I was member of the committee, what was my contribution to that committee? That's the question an employer wants you to answer. That's the question that's the response an employer wants to see. Right? And so that's the way you write your job functions. I believe this is clear enough. And then let's move on to the next thing. Now, there is something that is called a skills section on every CV. So you have written, again, we have completed the section of writing about your work experience. Now, whether or not you go on to write your academics, your academic background after your job experience, or you go on to write your skills after your job experience, will depend again on the description of the job and the things you have got yourself. Right? So for me, sometimes I could even write a CV and start that CV with my academic qualifications, right? Because my academic qualifications are sound enough. Like anybody reading through my academic qualification will be captured, right? But the idea is you want to start strong. So the best start for a strong communication is your experience. If you don't have that experience, but you have a very good academic qualification, like say your bachelor's degree you did, like in my case, I did like 4.98 over 5 in terms of CGPA. That's sound. It's something that an employer would see and wants to, like, look through, who is this person? Who, like, what's this person up to? Right? But if you are in a situation where, and then I follow it up with a master's of a 5.5 CGPA, so most employers would want to like look into the details of that. Who is this person? But if you are more on the skills side, you have got more skills that are relevant to the job, and your academic qualification is not as strong. So you don't have a very high CGPA. You want to bring down the role of your academic qualification, put it down on the pecking order. So bring up your skills and then talk about your skills. In talking about your skill, you want to list the skills that are relevant to that particular job. And again, there are people who go writing about their skills and the skills are vague, right? You write this is not to pick on anyone, but I've seen a CV, and again, of course, you wouldn't even know who I'm talking about, and so it's fine for learning purposes. I want to cite this instance. So I've seen a CV where somebody was talking about data analysis skills, right? The person is discussing the fact that he or she, in this case, knows how to use data manipulation tools, data visualization tools, but there is no specific name of any of the tools. So somebody can, use Excel to do data analysis. Another person uses Python to do data analysis. Someone else uses, say, maybe um, R to do data analysis. Somebody else uses MATLAB. Somebody else uses whatever thing else. Now the question is, if you have data analysis skills, what particular software or what particular group of packages can you use to do this, your data analysis? You want to specify those things and be as specific as possible on, in your CV, because that way the employer is able to put you in the right place. If you know how to to use Python, for instance, to do data analysis, and I know how to use Excel, you stand out somehow, right? But again, if your data analysis skills is basic Excel and you want to highlight that on your CV, you may not want to go into writing that, oh, you know how to use basic Excel for data analysis, because again, it's really not going to get you so much about the job, except if it's an entry level role where they intend to train you. Right. Let me sip some water. So you need to be very specific in terms of writing your job functions. You need to be very specific in terms of writing your skills. And then you need to also be very specific when you get down to your education. If for any of these things you write, your job role, your job achievements, your achievements on your previous job, you want to start with the strongest, the one that is more directly related to the job you are going for right now, the one that's more directly related to the current function you are going for. Those are the things you want to start with, and then all the other ones can come below that, but they should be the least in the pecking order. You could have maybe like you have worked in 20 companies, and the current application you are doing, just 2 of those previous experiences are relevant. You don't want to go through maybe like doing a chronological order of, say, ascending or descending, where you start with jobs that were not relevant to the advert, or jobs that just because those were the first places you worked, you want to bring them in, and then the job you did that's relevant to that one is now somewhere below, like down in the list of the order of your job experiences. You don't want to do that. You want to start with the best impact, the best foot forward, and then catch the interest of the person reading the CV, and then hook that person continuously down until the end of the CV. Follow up that hook on your cover letter or maybe your SOP. And then through the interview, you want to keep the person in the hook of, I am the best candidate for this job. I am the best suitable for this job. I am the candidate you shouldn't look away from for this particular job. Now, on the subject of listing your academic background or discussing your academic background on your CV, there are persons who can afford to write their CGPA on their CV. There are some other persons that I would advise don't include your CGPA. Just write that you have a bachelor's degree, right? Now, people would say, okay, but I don't have say you get to that section, and somebody has like a CGPA that's not really strong. and the person wants to highlight it, you are think of yourself as the employer. What impression are you trying to give? Right? Because again, the whole process of applying for jobs and applying for scholarship is you trying to put yourself forward, indicate you are interested in something, indicate you can do something, and try to manage the emotions of people and draw those emotions, draw favor out of their emotions to yourself. So if you are in the shoes of the job giver, in the shoes of the employer, would you rather that you see um, a weak CV, a weak CGPA on a CV, or you would rather that the person has shown you all his skills, all his work experience, avoids that statement of, oh, I had a low CGPA. And then when you get to the interview, because you are the applicant now, you have another opportunity to make a very good impression, to defend yourself. So if the question comes up during your interview to say, oh, what was your CGPA? I doubt anybody would ask that. But if, for instance, they choose to ask that, and your CGPA wasn't so good, you have the opportunity to have a conversation to discuss why. I have a friend whose CGPA wasn't so good and in the bachelor's, but he has a master's degree with a distinction here in the UK. Right? But this is now a situation where he can go into an interview and discuss that, okay, these were the things that happened, maybe because of this challenge, because of the other challenge, this situation, the other situation. I know somebody who made a third class and is a very sound, actually very intelligent person. Right? So, but you don't want to put that at the front of it because your CV is going out without you. You are not following your CV into the conversation. The CV goes out, represents you. You want to give the best representation of yourself through your CV. And that's just that. Now, people will often come to their CV and just write, oh, bachelor's degree, maybe in engineering, and they go away, right? But in the process of your doing that bachelor's degree, you want to identify the school. And after you identify the school from which you got the bachelor's degree, what exactly are the things that stand out during your bachelor's degree? What did you do that's special to your bachelor's degree? Very often, everybody would have done a graduation project that is different because it's specific to you or specific to, in some schools, maybe like a combination of two people did it. But you want to maybe like highlight the key finding of that project you did. So you did a project, you want to you finish school from somewhere, you want to at least write your thesis topic, and then your key finding of that thesis in bullet points under that section of your academics. And this again, you need to also bear in mind that you are working with space. You don't want to write a CV that's 10 pages. Nobody is going to read that, except maybe you are applying for a managerial position, or maybe um, you are like say Anangozi Okonjo-Iweala applying for head of the World Bank. Nobody is going to read 10 pages of a CV from someone who is just entering. I wouldn't myself, and everything I know about jobs and about applications, I know that most people will be bored reading that kind of CV. Right. So these are the things you do. The other section, the other segments you would have on a CV will be your maybe like your hobbies. It will be like your references. Sometimes references are on demand. I prefer to put it on demand if except if the job has stated categorically that I need to supply details of referees. If the job has not stated that I need details of referees, I avoid it. I maybe like just put it on demand, or I avoid that completely. But on the other section where you have to write say your hobbies, you also need to be careful. You don't want to write hobbies that an example, you are applying for a safety related job, and your hobby is maybe like something outrageously dangerous. Like your hobby is maybe like jumping mountains into valleys, and you are somebody who is supposed to apply for a safety kind of job. You want to ensure that your hobbies are also telling. You don't need to lie about your hobbies, but each of us must have or most people would have more than one hobbies, and one of those hobbies you have will be relevant to the job you're applying for. It could be a team. You're applying to be someone in a team, and then your hobby is to play football, a team sport, but you're applying for a role that needs to have you in a team, and your hobby is staying alone, for instance, or your hobby is like staying in isolation. You see, something doesn't just add up there. These are not like a word for word kind of example, but I believe you get the point I'm trying to make. In your hobbies, don't become, remember, the whole idea of the CV is you want to convince somebody to invite you for an interview or to give you a job, and that's the mindset you should carry through the CV. Now, I don't know if there are any questions coming in yet, but every question we will look at, and every question we'll look at, we'll answer all these questions as at the end of this event. But now, let's make some comments on academic CVs, because I know that most of you here are looking for scholarships. A good number of us are also looking for jobs. But let's make some comments and highlight the key differences between academic CVs and professional CVs. By professional CVs, the ones you are using to look for jobs. By academic CVs, the ones you are using to look for academic related positions. It could be graduate assistantship positions, it could be lecturing positions, postdoctorate positions, any of those kind of things. Now, when you write your professional CV, remember also, before we even leave that, you can have a section that is indicative of your professional membership. So you are, let's say, applying for an engineering position, and it has stated that this engineering position requires somebody who is a registered engineer. So you want to indicate in your application that you are registered in, depending on your country, in Nigeria is COREN, in some other places, I think here in the UK is the Royal Academy of Engineers. You need to indicate that you are a member of this organization. In the petroleum engineering sector, we have the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Most of us started joining it when we were still in school. And actually, if you are any student in engineering, I will encourage you to join the Society of Petroleum Engineers, especially if you have if you are from a country where oil is produced. Memberships for students are usually free. I think Chevron pays for all student members, so you can join for free, and then that payment will be waived for you. They renew it on a yearly basis. For the period you are a student, it will be waived. These professional associations are very good learning points. You have a lot of advantage. You pick up very good opportunities to network, to understand where the industry is going and all of that. So include your membership of professional bodies, and then you can include a section for awards, or you call it other achievements. I think in my CV I called it other achievements, or awards and other achievements, where I had to list all the awards I've won, including the academic ones, maybe professional recognitions, and then in that place I remember, and this is taking me to academic CVs. In that my professional CV, there's a statement there that reads something like published, I think 5 papers and then 2 conference paper presentations, something of that kind. But the idea is, I will not go into all the details of my publication on in a professional CV, like going to write the title of the publication, the direct number for finding that paper, the journal that published it, the conference where I presented. I wouldn't do that, because all the other things I want to highlight on my professional CV in terms of my work experience, they are more important in the particular scope of my application than the papers I have published, right? But if I am writing an academic CV, which is the next thing we want to discuss now, I will want to include more details about the publications. Now, why do I include it in my professional CV in the first place? Because in the oil and gas sector, which is where my field is, we value the oil and gas companies do a lot of research, and then they do a lot of papers, they do a lot of presentations in conferences, they host a lot of technical meetings where people come to present their innovative findings, their the case histories, their findings from the jobs that they've done, and all of that. So because I know that the industry I'm going into has a record of that, I also want to showcase that, well, even if in addition to being an excellent engineer who has this qualification, who has these professional memberships, who has done this and done that in the past, achieved this and achieved that, I want to also include that, well, if it becomes a case of my team has done something and we need someone to go out there in a big conference to present it, I am that person that can go there. So this is like an added value I'm bringing into the team, which somehow many people may not have, because presentation is actually a skill. It's not everybody that can make presentations. There are so many smart persons that can't stand before the camera. There are so many smart persons that can't stand before an audience. There are people who are stage shy. There are people who can't talk to an audience. And so adding that little chip there is me trying to work on the mind of the person who will employ me to say that, well, if need be, I can also write papers. I can also go out there and make presentations on behalf of the company. So it becomes a case of, if all the other applicants have the same kind of experience and qualifications as myself, that might be what stands me out of the crowd. Right, but now with this connection, let's now move into academic CVs. In this segment, I want to discuss academic CVs as maybe same thing as a CV you'll be using for a research kind of position. You're looking for a research job, or say a company has advertised a research kind of job, you're applying for that job. This is the kind of thing you want to do. Now again, the first segment of your CV, remember we mentioned that CVs should be written in segments. You don't need to pick up the lines and draw there. They're not really necessary. You don't need to be too artistic. You don't need to put all your pictures and all that, because those things will just occupy space, make your CV unnecessarily lengthy. Some other persons will find that annoying, especially if the dress up is not a professional dress and all that. But you want to even stay away from that. Make use of the space to write and to write relevant things. So first segment in whether professional or academic CV is your contact details. Contact details starts with your name. It goes to include your phone number. It goes to include your email address. Sometimes, like we mentioned before, your physical address might be needed there. The next thing you want to do is a summary, a career summary, a professional summary. Some persons, if the job is directly related to research, want to write it as a research summary, right? Or what I said earlier is, I don't want it written, I don't like to write it as objectives. I don't want to write career objectives, because I want to treat that section as my main hook to capture the interest of the person who is reading it. So I want to write it as a summary. I want to write it as an abstract of myself, or in business, an executive summary of my entire CV. And again, the way I write this is going to depend on the job description. So if I'm looking for a position, or some professor has advertised that he has like a graduate assistantship position somewhere, and I want to get into that graduate assistantship position, I want to read the details of the job. I want to read the detail. And again, you need to even treat your graduate assistantship applications as an application for a job. Right? The same impact you want to make when you're applying for a job, the same way you want to make impact when you apply for a job, is same way you should want to make impact when you're applying for a graduate assistantship position. The idea is, somebody is going to hire you. You will be working for that professor for a given number of years, and the professor will be paying you. The school will waive your application, your tuition fees. And because they are doing all of this, you want to give your best foot, you want to put your best foot forward, and you want to do the best you can to convince them that you are the right person for the job. So you have read through these job details and job profile, and at the end of reading those job profiles, what do you want to do? You want to go into that your career summary and talk about the things you have done in the past, who you are in the present, and what you intend to do in the future. So when you write things this way, you sort of are able to give the person a quick summary of why you should be the person employed for the job. Because one, what you have done in the past is relevant to the job. Who you are in the present possesses the right skills for the job. And then who you intend to be aligns with who the job is trying to train you into, right? Because again, there are very nice students, fantastic students, very intelligent, smart people that would not fit into a research kind of position. And because that's not their passion, that's not what they want to do, right? So if you bring the person into a research position, the person will struggle because that's not his interest. But you want to align with the job application from your very career summary. So the person has said, let's say there is a research assistantship position under this faculty, and when you read through that job profile, you are saying that after this, like saying, okay, we need master's degree research assistants, and the project continues for like a period of 5 years, right? So because the way research assistantships work, the professor has got like a research project he's doing, maybe sponsored by a company, sponsored by the government, or sponsored by the school, and that project is lasting for say a period of 5 years, and you are seeing the project in the first year of its advert, and the professor is willing to accept master's degree students into that program, and you are writing your career summary. You don't want to stop at saying, "Oh, I am this person. I have done this in the past. These are the skills I have now, and then I want to take up a master's degree and stop." No, because if you want to just take up a master's degree and stop, and someone else comes in with a stronger position of, "I want to maybe like build a career or looking to build a career in research," right? The professor is already seeing a PhD candidate and possibly a potential postdoctorate student under him. So somebody he can have use the master's degree period to train, and then somebody who stays back with him in the next 3 years trying to work on that project and bring the project to completion, right? So if you are the professor, the question is, who would you pick? Yeah, in fact, actually, let's know in the comment section, if you watch this video to this point, who would you pick if you are that professor? Would you pick the person who just wants to do a master's degree and run away when your project continues for 5 years? Or would you want to pick somebody who gives an impression that, oh, he's actually interested in research? I'm not saying you should go to your CV and lie. I'm not saying you should go tell lies. But again, there are you should master the art of words, how to use words to achieve your aim without having to tell lies, right? So somebody is saying that he's interested in research, and then the other person is saying, I want to do a master's degree, right? The person who has said he's interested in research is not giving you a clear idea of when he is going to take up a long-term research position, right? But the impact it has on the mind of the person giving out the job will be significantly positive than the impact saying that, oh, you want to just do a master's degree and leave. Because the professor has got 5 years to work on his project. He has got or maybe 6 years to work on the project. At maximum, your master's degree will be 2 years, after which you leave. A PhD would have been an extra 3 years, which completes the cycle of the project he's doing. And then he knows that you have learned on this project, you have understood the scope of the project, you have developed the skills for the project within the period of your master's degree, and the next 3 years you can be working almost independent of his supervision, instead of picking up someone else who would just do a master's degree and leave, and then he has to employ someone else to start training the person fresh and trying to brush up the person on understanding the details of the job and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are the professor, who would you choose? That's my question. So let me know in the comment section. And once you're able to answer that question in the comment section, then you need to now tailor your own application in that regard. Make your application reflect that kind of purpose. Your use of words is actually very important. If you don't master the craft of using words, writing a good CV will be difficult for you. If you don't master the craft of using words, writing an impressive SOP will be difficult for you, because again, what you want to achieve is showcase what you can do, what you have done, what you intend to do, but then lay an impression on the mind of the person to the point where he can't say no, where she can't say no to your application. right? So you have done that summary, a brief summary, a one paragraph summary of what you've done, what you can do, and what you intend to do. That's the way I write it. Different persons will have their own opinions on that, but this is what I do, and it has worked for me over my, I wouldn't say a very long career, but within the short term, within the short period I've been, after my education, as after my master's degree, this has really worked. In fact, it has really worked for me. And I think if you do it, it will also work for you. So you have done that. The next section, remember, in the professional CV, you were writing about your work experience. Now, in your academic CV, you want to write about two things. In the academia, there are two major things that are done. The first one is teaching, the second one is research. But if you don't have a teaching experience, you don't need to manufacture it. You don't need to tell any lies because, again, everything you write on your CV will follow you to the interview. Your interviews are mostly a discussion, a detailed discussion of your CV and your cover letter in general. There will be other questions that come into it, but in general, those are the starting points of every interview. Right. Now, if you have a teaching experience or you have worked anywhere in research, you want to talk about those things. And don't think you don't have a research experience if you have graduated. If you have, I don't know how schools work in all the places where my followers are coming from, but I studied in Russia. I am from Nigeria and I live in the UK, right? And when I was in Russia, I know that I met people from different places. I had friends from the Arab world. I had friends from other parts of Africa. I remember there was a guy from the US in our school then, and all of that. So it was like a mix. Some other parts of Europe and all that. But the point is, if you have done your bachelor's degree, you would have done like a graduation project. That's like the foundation of research for your research experience starts from there. Your relevant research experience, if you have no other one, should be that work you did in your bachelor's degree. Now, remember how we mentioned in your professional CV that when you write your academic background, when you write that, oh, you did a bachelor's degree, you should write a summary of what you did in that bachelor's degree. So you come to your academic CV and you don't have any other relevant research experience. You want to focus on that your CV, you want to focus on that your project. What exactly did you do in that project? What was the topic of the project? What were you looking for in the project? What did you find through the project? Then, at the end of writing what you did and what you found through the project, the other question you want to answer is what exactly did you did you participate in any kind of conferences? Did you attend any conference anytime? Did you go to any of those conferences that were organized professionally? It may be a student conference, it may be a professional conference in terms of bringing working class people, but any of those conferences you attended should also go into your academic CV. That's after you've written your research experience, you've written your teaching experience. Some people would say, well, I do not have any teaching experience, but again, it's a CV. You need to write it. And now, because you need to write it, you want to now start thinking back to what were the times you've taught something relevant. Of course, it will be strange to go to your CV and start writing that, oh, you taught you conducted tutorials for your, say, your nephew, your nieces, and all that. It might sound strange, except if you are looking for like these online tutorial kind of jobs. That's where you might put that. But for a scholarship, for a graduate assistantship, if you have conducted tutorials before in your school, and again, this is why you need to have scholarships are not like a one event kind of thing. It's not a friendly game that you play once and you lose. It's like a league. Everything connects. And if you are someone, an undergraduate, and you are watching this, or you know any undergraduate that's watching this, and the person is interested in scholarships, then this is the time to start building towards it. You know that your academic CV should have a research experience and a teaching experience, but how do you get a teaching experience? You can choose to start organizing tutorials. right? It could be paid, it could be unpaid, but the game is you want to use these tutorials to amplify and solidify your application for graduate scholarships, for bachelor, for master's degree scholarships, for doctorate degree scholarships. You want to use this to solidify it. So if you are someone still in school doing a master's degree or a bachelor's degree somewhere, and you have an interest in applying for graduate assistantship outside of your country, what you want to do is you are building your research experience through your project. You want to try to see if you can balance it up with a teaching experience that comes from the tutorials you organize, because within the academia, your professor will have research that he's doing. He might or she might have some teaching responsibilities, and you might be in the position to conduct tutorials for his students, to conduct lab sessions for his students. So you want to like balance that area up. I'm not saying you should go and organize like O-level tutorials and all that, like leave your school and go into it, but you need to think of the future and see how far the present is preparing you for the future. I had to take a postgraduate diploma in education because I was foreseeing myself doing a graduate assistantship position, possibly, the position that my thought was, if I don't get a professional job, the next best option was to go back to school. And then if I was going back to school, I wouldn't go to school to pay, because education is actually expensive, if you know what I mean. It's expensive. So if there are people who can pay, if there are options to have this education for free, why not prepare myself for it? So I took a postgraduate diploma in education when I was doing my master's. And if all things had come to a point where I needed to activate graduate assistantship options, that degree would have been a very perfect presentation, a very good addition to my application. So you have written all of those, you have written those segments, the summary, you have come to the research experience, you are writing that, and be as detailed as possible. Have the numbers, quantify your achievements, quantify your findings. If you found that, say, a certain bacteria would die at 25 degrees centigrade, don't write that you found that this bacteria will die after heating. No, you can quantify that this bacteria, for instance, dies after 25 degrees, dies in under 25 degrees of heat exposure for 20 minutes, or this bacteria will die at 100 degrees centigrade after 20 minutes or after 30 minutes. These are the numbers that make your job achievements, your research accomplishments, your experience quantifiable, presentable, and very interesting to read. Right? So don't be vague. Don't just write very common things that everybody would write. Just go as detailed as possible, and then you will find yourself standing out. On your teaching experience, when you write about your teaching experience, try to also quantify it. Don't come write that, oh, you taught a class of undergraduate students, or you taught a class of students. Like a class of students could be a class of primary school students, could be a class of secondary school students, a class of university students, a class of master's degree students, and a class of students could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 30. And then you want to also quantify things that showcase your efficiency as a teacher. So if you are a teacher or you were a tutor, you were conducting tutorials for people that you are now bringing into your CV, what are the things that showcase your expertise, your efficiency, the number of persons you can handle in a class, and all of that? What shows that you can actually organize a class, you can actually manage a class, and you can actually develop syllabus and all of that kind of thing. These are things you actually need to showcase on your CV. And once again, let's just take a little break and I sip some water while you hit the share button to ensure that this message gets to everybody. I do not take this for granted. I value it, I appreciate it, and beyond my appreciation of it, your friends also need to see these kind of videos, because again, lots of persons are struggling with CV writing. And I don't say this just to make a claim. I've seen a couple of CVs, and I know that people are actually struggling to write good CVs. So let your friend benefit from this. Just hit the share button while I sip some water. Thank you for staying with me, by the way. All right, so you have written that, and most times after you've done all of those things, you want to highlight your skills as well. So you notice that the major difference between the academic CV is the other one you are talking about your work experience. This one you are talking about your research experience as the first highlight. After that first highlight on your academic CV, you can now go on to write your related job experience. So if you're applying for a research assistantship position in the Faculty of Engineering and you've got some engineering background, some persons would say, oh, don't include it. But I know, being an engineer myself and then working, having both sides of it as a professional engineer and then as someone who has been in research, I know that your engineering experience from the office can actually be very relevant to your research. Again, you are not making it the main highlight of your application because it's sort of two different worlds. The engineering in the office and engineering research can be different. But again, even when you do research, sometimes if you are doing an applied research or an industrial research, your understanding from the industry can help help like navigate or direct your research, your academic research in the right direction, either to make it more something that will be useful immediately to the industry, or knock out some unnecessary investigations because you know that these problems have been solved in the industry, or you know that, well, let's say we are trying to test for something and we are testing that thing at say 120 degrees centigrade, but we know that in the industry, based on your experience, that material to be effective in the industry should be tested to like say 250 degrees. So it helps you, the industry experience comes in as well. So if you have got some industry experience and you are doing an academic CV, don't throw it away. Don't say because you heard somewhere that this is irrelevant and then you dump it somewhere, you throw it away. Have it there, but bring it in after your relevant research experience. Now, again, there are people who do not have any significant research experience beyond their bachelor's degree, right? If that is your case, put that your bachelor's degree research, include it, define it the way we've discussed, quantify the things you found the way we've discussed, and then after that, go to your work experience and then include your actual engineering experience. This is, like I mentioned, I am an engineer, and very often I mention engineers. Very often I mention salespersons because I think salespeople should be their CVs should be the easiest to write and to quantify based on the nature of the job, as well as teachers, right? But regardless, if your career is like in broadcasting, talk about your research in broadcasting. You can think of maybe the research you've conducted to come to conclusions on certain investigative journalism and all of that kind of thing. But again, you have done all of this. You have written your job experience. You've written your research experience, your work experience. Now, the other key part is your skills, right? And this is why you need to actually pay attention to every job description, every detail of a scholarship description, every detail of a graduate assistantship position or a postdoctorate position. Because if you are going for a research position, that research will be defined. You will have a place where, for instance, it says that they need somebody who understands Python or an expert in Python programming, in data processing, or in one of those kind of things. Now, you want to state your skills, right? You want to mention the skills you have that are relevant to the job. And again, in the pecking order, the most relevant should come first. Even if that most relevant was the first skill you learned, don't go and say, well, this was the first, I learned it in 2016, and because it was in 2016, I want to put it as the last skill I have. No, make it your first skill, because that's your immediate hook for the person who is reading the CV. You catch that interest, and then you can continue with a mix of all the other skills you have that are relevant. Don't, of course, talk about how you are a Leo Messi, for instance, or how you are a Cristiano Ronaldo, how you dribble the whole pitch and you score a goal when you're talking about a research position. Well, that might be in your hobbies, but that shouldn't be somewhere in your skill. Your skills should be the technical skills that address the jobs issues. If it's a research that's looking to like move from industry to the market within the period you are there, and you've been a salesman or you've been a business development manager somewhere, you might want to mention that as part of your skill, because again, every research needs to be marketed to be profitable, except if you are doing a research that's directly for, let's say, like a specific company has employed you to do research for them. You know that they will do the marketing for you or for themselves. But if you are doing a research that you need to commercialize or you intend to commercialize, if you see that commercialization anywhere in the description of the work, and you've got some experience in business development, in marketing, in sales, then those could be things that will make you stand out in addition. Apart from that, now you come to the additional proof of your research experience, the additional proof of your knowledge of research is your journal paper publications and your presentations and conferences. So very often people make the mistake of including their master's degree or bachelor's degree thesis as a publication. Please, your bachelor's degree that you submitted to your school is not a journal publication. Of course, there are people who go to the extent of publishing their masters, whatever, but you need to separate that. You could write like thesis, and then under that thesis topic, you can write that, oh, this thesis is published somewhere. But for the actual thing that's called journal publication, they are different. These are things, a piece of work that you publish in peer-reviewed journals. And when you go to those peer-reviewed journals, you will have those kind of publications listed there. When you list your peer-reviewed journal papers, you should include the title of the paper. You should include the journal where it was published, the year it was published. You should also include a direct link to the paper. I think it's called DOI. DOI. So the person who is reading can move directly to publish, to see your published work, and then the person can see the topic, the person can see everything. Now, if your research, your published papers are not directly related to the job you're applying for, you also want to still highlight it, right? You want to still mention it. The reason you have to mention it is because it gives the impression of someone who can sit down, work on something, bring it from an academic point of view, go through the process of drafting it, from scratch, and then going through the method, a rigorous or maybe a detailed methodology, and then arriving at a conclusion on something. It helps you, it improves your chances of winning that scholarship. It may not be directly related. It might be something that's published in a different field. Say, for instance, you're moving from maybe mechanical engineering to materials engineering. You may have published in your mechanical engineering days. Those publications should still be listed and with all the details we've described in the publication section. If you have gone for if you have presented a paper in a conference before, please, by all means, include the details of the publications you made in your the details of the presentations you made in your academic CV. I mentioned earlier that in my case, when I write my professional CV, I just write the number of publications I have, right? Maybe I've published 20 or I've published 5. I think as the last time I reviewed my CV, I had like maybe 6 publications, or maybe like 6, 7 papers and conference presentations together. So I put it more like in numbers. But in my academic CVs, you will see those things in details. And actually, academic CVs tend to be longer than professional CVs for this particular reason. So after you've done all of these, you want to include your references if the advert has said include references. Now, don't make the mistake of writing the name of your professor and the phone number of the professor and the email address of the professor if you have not discussed with the person. So, because the other reason why I don't, people prefer to write referees as maybe on demand is because these are personal details of someone. You don't want to give it out everywhere, and you don't want to give it out without the approval of that person. And that is why, again, scholarships are not one-off friendly games. You think of scholarships as a league match. If you understand football, you think of scholarships as a league. right? There are going to be several matches, several steps in the process to winning. And if you are thinking of it in that direction, then you know that you have to build relationships with your professors, with your lecturers, with the doctors in your department, with your project supervisor. You want to build good relationships so that if need be, they'll be able to write you a very sound academic reference. They'll be able to write you a very sound reference letter that will help you win the scholarship you are looking for. Again, whether or not you include their details will depend on the prompt and then on the job, on the description of the job, and then secondly on your prior conversation with them, because you need to also get them on your side. They should agree with you before you go on to publish their details to anybody. Now, this was Academy of Scholarships and Transitions, and of course, we teach in this place, we deliver quality in this place, and the next event we will have will focus on SOP writing. And when we discuss SOPs, we'll tie it together with cover letters, because for those looking for jobs, you do cover letters. For those looking for scholarships, you will do statement of purpose, personal statement, and all of those kind of things. Depending on the school and depending on the particular institution, the name might differ. But this will be our next event. I am not sure if this event happens tomorrow, but I had plans to have the two events this weekend. How things have developed within the weekend is a bit of, making it look like it's impossible. But regardless, if you have watched us today, these publications about our events are always on our page. And if you can just do me a favor, click on the link I will post in the comment section now. Head on to our YouTube channel and just subscribe. We are looking to reach 1,100 subscribers on YouTube, if possible, before the end of December. And with your support, I trust that we can do that. So please head on to the comment section. It's pinned comment. Hit the link there. Get to our YouTube channel. Subscribe there. And then we will be in touch across different platforms. This page is also on TikTok, by the way. And then myself, I am on LinkedIn as Chukwuemeka Augustine Okechukwu. If you have enjoyed this session, please don't forget to share it with your friends. And I tell people that there are a couple of ways you can help your friends to find good information. Social media is saturated with information, but not every information is relevant, right? Every application, you need an application to win, but not every application wins a scholarship or wins a job. But now, if you want to help your friends to see relevant content, to see good content, you can do any of these. Go to the comment section of this video and tag them, right? Tag as many friends as you can, tag them. You can go to the to your own profile and write a note about us, like just a quick note, maybe like you discovered a page that is dedicated to empowering people with useful information. Tag Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. We'll come there, we'll like it, we'll comment on that, and then it also helps you even gain some, level of visibility. But then, if you can't do any of this, then just go find the posts that are relevant to your friends, just share them. And while I'm talking about all of this, please go on in the comment section. Let your questions start dropping in now, because I think we've done justice to this event. And that was CV writing. If you follow everything I've said today on this CV writing, you will very soon be taking CV writing jobs. Yeah, if you follow everything I've said today, you start taking CV writing jobs very soon and very quickly. So, and that's why we are an academy of scholarships and transitions. We teach, and I spend time to ensure that you understand what I am doing. I pity the people who do not watch our scholarship discussions, because if you follow the instructions in our scholarship discussions, you will win. And those instructions come from someone who has won scholarships a whole lot, like won scholarships over and over. Maybe not a whole lot, but I have won scholarships. My bachelor's degree was fully funded, master's degree was fully funded, PhD is being fully funded. And in fact, I did actually win some kind of scholarship in secondary school. So if you follow everything I say regarding scholarships, somewhere, somehow, you'll become like me, especially if you are still a young person. And please, if you have a relative that is in secondary school or someone who is in doing his or her bachelor's, bring them to this page. I would want to work with them and do a catch them young for them. Like show them what they need to start doing today to have an easy walk through scholarships in the near future. Because like you heard me mention, I talked about maybe taking up like tutorials to build your teaching experience. These are things that you may not be able to think about it, or you may not see the relevance of it, but because I've been through it, I can see it. You may not see the relevance of publishing your bachelor's degree papers or your bachelor's degree graduation thesis, but I see it. And I want to show people why they need to do it and how they should do it. Because we ask why, we ask how, we ask when. I want to show you when you should do it. I want to show them the time, the right period for during which they should do such things in order to make maximum benefit of it. I could go back today and pick up my bachelor's degree thesis and try to publish it, but of what relevance will it be to me in my current status, right? But if you did that at the point you are graduating, then you could use it to negotiate your way through a lot of things, to a graduate scholarship, assistantship, to whatever, to maybe any other kind of scholarship. You could even use it to negotiate what's it called again? This test of English language waivers. I've done that too. So, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So the English language test thing is like a common question that people ask. But this was what helped me navigate through it because I had that mapped out. I knew where I was going to. I had a plan of what I wanted to do. And, some of the things I did in the process of time added up to help me get to where I am. It always takes that planning. And I would want to help your younger ones start planning their lives early. If they are interested in academics, and then in fact, even if they're interested in business, bring them to this page and I will be of good use to them. Someone has said, "Great addition to knowledge." I was compelling my CV and realized it is on point. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Sapong Maxwell. Thank you for joining, and this was a very nice one. Desmond, thank you so much, sir, for sharing great insight. Thank you also for joining us. I can hear you. Kinsley Onyema, this is my own personal man. Onyema, greetings and a big shout out to you. Thank you for joining us and thank you for confirming that you could hear me. Your voice is coming out clear. That was Jane. Thank you so much. Okay, Nahim eventually started hearing us. Thank you for confirming that. In Yobong, thank you very much for joining all the way from Nigeria. That was great. I love that. Ruto, you watched us all the way from Kenya. Thank you so much. I had Kenyan friends, but I really didn't learn anything from any language. I can't remember. I used to know that from the Rwandans they say bite, is it bite sour, something like that as a form of greeting. I really can't remember how the Kenyan guys were greeting, but greetings from the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us today, Ruto. David also joined us from Nigeria. Thank you very much, David. I see this name very often and I want to recognize you, especially you have been a regular person on these live programs. Thank you so much for joining us today. Nana, you joined us all the way from Ghana, Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sheka Ahmed from Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Sierra Leone. David joined us from Adamawa State in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope Nigeria is. How is Nigeria today, by the way? And what's the weather like? What's the temperature like? It's been a couple of months since I last touched home. Thank you so much for all the people that joined us. I'm looking at the questions and the chats. I really can't see any. It does feel like everybody understood what I said so much. Mary joined us today. Thank you so much, Mary. She said, "Wow." And it was a wild situation, actually. Thank you so much for joining. Who else joined us? I may not have mentioned your name, but let me just look through the comments and the shares, and then appreciate everybody who did share the video. Dr. Chukwuemeka Anslem, thank you so much. And if you are not following Dr. Chukwuemeka Anslem on this page, I recommend you do so. Just follow him. You will find some things that are really very useful. One day, I will tell you the story of the connection between myself and him and the level of impact he had in building the person that is talking to you today. Thank you so much. You can go follow him, and then I recommend you do so just right now. Bilo Liberty, my own man, thank you so much for joining us today. Nweke Elias, thank you so much for joining. I think I remember this name very clearly. Elias, how have you been? It's been a while. Thank you so much for joining. To all the people that had time to share the videos, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that, for all the likes, for all the comments, for all the interaction. I really sincerely appreciate that. This video has gained over 60 likes within the period of doing it. Aaron was here today. Thank you so much. I just want to go through some of the list. Onyinye Onyema, thank you so much. Abagambo, thank you so much. Dahiru, thank you so much. Isaka, thank you so much. So many people. Abdul Aziz, thank you so much. Chibunna, thank you so much. Joe, not Biden. This guy, you are not Joe Biden. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank God you were there. Mwali Chukwuemeka, you are recognized. Thank you so much. Simon Peters, you were here. Grace, you were here. Engineer Desmond, thank you so much for joining us. Deno Nderitu, thank you so much. I hope I got that pronunciation right. Kingsman, thank you so much. Amos, thank you so much. I hope you are good, Amos. By the way, it's been a while. How are you doing? Victory was there. Thank you so much. Cross was there. Thank you so much. Francos, thank you so much. Kabir, Usman, so many people. Koranteng, thank you so much. This is a global audience. Nana Oduro, thank you so much, my own man. Kenneth Egu, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Cynthia, thank you so much. David, thank you so much. We were all here, and I believe this session was really great and really impactful. If you got any other questions at the end, please drop your questions in the comment section. I'll be checking the comments once in a while. Some comments I may not see, some others I would see, but once I see your question, I will do my best to respond to them. Thank you so much from this end. This was Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. If you want to follow us on YouTube, please head on to YouTube and through the link in the comment section. Follow us there. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, my name is Chukwuemeka Augustine Okechukwu. Good night, and have a very wonderful weekend all the way from Scotland, in Aberdeen in Scotland, in the UK. Good night, and see you some other time. Bye.